All right, here we're just going to introduce ratios a little bit and talk about how do we write different ratios. So a ratio is simply a comparison of two different quantities. Okay, so in this case, we're going to compare these shapes, the numbers of these shapes. So if I asked you to write the ratio of stars to circles, you would count the number of stars, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'd count the number of circles, 1, 2. So my ratio is simply 4 to 2, or I can write it as 4 with a colon and 2, or I can write it as a fraction, 4 to 2. Now, it's written in this way with the 4 first and the 2 second because the ratio asked for it in that order. The ratio started with stars and then ended with circles, and so I have to put the number of stars first and then the number of circles. That means I don't have to put the word stars with this 4 and the word circles with this 2 because it's implied. If the ratio was asked in the order of stars to circles, then I have to give it in the order of stars to circles. Now, this just means that for every 4 stars, there's 2 circles. I can simplify this much like I can simplify a fraction. Okay, I can divide both of these numbers by 2, and I get the ratio of 2 to 1. Now, since I'm not dealing with 2 to 1 as a single number, I'm thinking of it as a ratio of 2 numbers. I want to leave it as 2 to 1. I don't want to just simplify that down to 2. I could write this in my three different forms, 2 to 1, and 2 colon 1. Okay, and that just means that for every 2 stars, there's 1 circle. And we can see that right here. If I actually go like this, we have 2 stars to 1 circle, 2 stars to 1 circle. That's my ratio. Okay, now it didn't ask anything about this square over here. We don't even need to worry about it because it just asked for the ratio of stars to circles. All right. My next ratio asks for circles to stars. So this time I have to reverse the order. I have 2 circles to 4 stars. 2 to 4, 2 to 4. And when I simplify this, I make it 1 to 2. Because that order matters. It's what it's being asked for. It's what the order that is being asked for in. Okay? So now let's look at this next one. It asks us to find the ratio of squares to other shapes. Okay, so there's 1 square. And then since it's asking for other shapes, I'm not going to include the square here. I'm going to only count the other shapes other than the squares. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other shapes. All right, so we have 1 to 6, 1 to 6, and 1 over 6. Okay. The next one, though, asks us circles to total shapes. And so I'm going to start with the circles. So that's 2 circles. And then the total shapes, is a circle a shape? Yes. So we need to include the circle when we're counting the shapes. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total shapes. So 2 to 7 is our circles to total shapes. 2 to 7, 2 over 7, 2 to 7, written like that. And our last one here is shapes to squares. So that one didn't have other shapes or total shapes. So if it just says shapes, we're going to assume that it's total shapes. Okay, so we know that the total shapes is 7. And then we know that the squares is 1, so 7 to 1, 7 to 1, and 7 over 1. Okay, so that's our 3 different ways to write ratios. You need to be able to recognize that all of those are different ways to write ratios, and also you need to be able to write each of those different ways. But when we're asked to write a ratio and we have a number of objects or things, all that we have to do is we have to write it in one of these forms, comparing the 2 quantities to each other.